Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John's Reporters for the 16th of November, and we had a big test the other day of that 23%, and it was interesting because as you broke below it, we saw significant selling that then got bought up later on, and once you got back over that encouraged a lot of people, I think, and certainly drove us all the way back above the green ABM and hit right back up against this 2730 algo from previous extremes, and sort of dipped on there, so there's going to be a little pressure up against that right now. But from an institutional standpoint, this is kind of an interesting spot because you really, after these initial pumps, you look for that 50% retrace into a move, and that becomes attractive to start buying. Now, do we have a buy signal? No. What we've had is short-term buyers really holding this up. We're getting a plateau of the red DOC. Now, if it does begin to pivot up here, or at least flatten out, that's going to be at a higher level, which corresponds to where price is, so it will be convergent. But that will be the next propelling for, well, the holiday trade that's coming up as we move into Thanksgiving light and then the beginning of the Christmas trade. So market's kind of poised pretty well. For all intents and purposes, no dip below the red line on the extreme. So it's all pretty much in line. For as dramatic as we're getting with some of these moves, I think we were, started up 15, down 30, back up another 30. It's beautiful range. And NASDAQ, not quite as strong as what we're seeing from the S&P, so a little bit of a softening, relatively speaking, but identical DOC readings. So even if the price isn't the same, the behavior is identical. Markets really, well, at least EU is loving the Brit exit because it's really not an exit. It's just a continuation of everything being the same. Only Britain has no control. That's a good thing for the EU. And certainly reflected, even though you might consider this not a whole lot of move. But the reality is Euro's way inflated anyway, given what the U.S. economy is doing vis-a-vis Euro. And again, this bizarre flight to quality with the Fed's assurance that they're going to raise rates. Bizarre counter behavior because I think people are becoming a little more risk adverse, and that's causing a little bit of trauma. Now, this was a funny one because I read an article the other day where this hedge fund in oil was shocked at the decline, that they had no expectation of it, and I sort of just went to our indicators, and it's like, okay, we've been following this daily chart for how long? Yeah, forever. And clearly we had our ABM value right up here at the 1563 level, and right at that point we got a DOC spread with the cyan popping up. We had the orange spike, steel. Now the steel reset from down below. I was a little more concerned with that one, but by the time you got to the crossover of red, which was right about here, we were still making new lows, so there would be no buy with that. Best you would just put your upper stop in, like the red one that's there. And pretty much we followed this decay in the shakeout and continuation with orange stuck between red and cyan. DOC is just continuation, and look what we've got. And so what was confusing about any of this? It was like I was looking at the Apple chart and everyone was pissing and moaning over this one. How much more easier can we get? We walk over here, we look at the fact that we had positive extremes. Get my little vertical line right over the first red positive extreme. Bingo. And then we can walk back over here to our dips below the red line. If I get myself another line. Okay. So, boom, we've got to dip down and do that one. So, do a new little parallel and put this right there. And it's like, okay, there's still more room for Apple to dip to the 180 if I'm talking about getting a full reset, but there was nothing shocking about this. I mean, I think that's a pretty clean DOC spread right there from a short signal. We had earlier ones as well, going back over to here, that just kind of mucked around a little bit. But that's because you didn't have, all you had was the decaying shakeout here. I love this one because, again, higher highs, lower shakeout, DOC spread, bye-bye, bye-bye. Not brain surgery. You know, the same thing here. We look at XPT, which is the Bitcoin futures. Hey, you know, it starts with a couple little breakup moves, but then clearly you've got your short snake with expanding momentum as the green is cascading. Still took another day or so for the green to actually cross, and everyone's like shocked that, you know, there's a decline. And you just have to chuckle at that because the market said what it was going to do. Whether people pay attention to it or not, now that's a different issue. Because, wow, look at this mess. All right, let's break up this craziness here. So, started off morning with a nice little pump that faded pretty quickly. Then we ended up down towards the lows, and you can see all these magenta lines. These are all previous algo levels, and they turn out to be quite a bit of confluences with them, because the bottom low peak that we ended up getting the buy signal from early drove it all the way up from there. DOC spread drove it back down to a 50% move. New buy signal came in right above the 50%, shot up, massive run up from there, and that gets us to the end of day, where I can increase the size of the chart, makes it a little easier to see these readings. But it was a beautiful run, starting with this early motion, and then boom. Even if you got a little skittish here at the 50% or whatever, they ended up with cyan under a red, which is always a buy. And that produced a beautiful run from this 50% level of like 84. You know, we shot all the way up to 08. I mean, that's a power move. We had an early DOC spread that just kind of mucked around a little bit, and the secondary one, which again, you know, you were closer to matching highs on the lower shakeout again, and that produced a nice dip that generated another buy. Actually, even a little earlier than that, it was right there where you had the original dip below. And then, see, I love those because when you get buys that come in right around the 50%, that's, to me, significant, because it's saying, hey, there was interest at the support level, and that's usually what creates the nice runs, which then produce the nice tops, which then give us all of these positive extremes that will need to be filled back in. We had that 2704. Now, it was interesting, this positive extreme finished right on the peak of that, but we actually have the low of that one now, right around 99. So that's the next level in there. And as we scroll across to where we currently are, post-market, we had that nice little dip right to the 50%. New buy signal comes in a little bit towards the 61. It didn't have much juice before you ended up with DOC spread, which took us all the way back down to the 23. And a not so attractive buy, but what you were getting was the higher P2 in gold. And it dipped below the green right on this bar right here. Traded sideways, and then up to the new high. And then, of course, we can mark that one right now. Clean and easy. Straight on it. Beautiful snake. See, this is such an important thing, because I love it when you're having green crossing from below. Okay, you get this significant cross point. At the same time, cyan's crossing above it. At the same point, orange and steel breaking down. So I'm getting a short snake, I'm getting the alien, all of it put together, all into one filled swoop at the same time. Those tend to have more oomph, more direct oomph, as far as like hitting straight down, as opposed to some of them that it's a little softer, so they trade a little bit sideways because you already had the crossover here of the steel, so it lost its momentum from back there. The green had crossed over here. Yeah, sure, you're getting the actual cyan moving above green and green moving below red. It was enough, but it still produced the closing mouth and that gave a little bit of a pump to it. So that's the difference, why we see some of these that break quickly versus others that not quite so much. So there's the long and the short of it. As always, I'll keep putting up the beautiful charts. Trade well and have a great weekend. I'm going to be in Milan for the entire weekend, so catch up when I'm back. Trade well.